The film begins with a man named Danny Meehan, who is filming a soccer shoe commercial. Danny used to be a famous player for the England national soccer team, but he retired about a year ago. Now he spends most of his time drinking because he's still angry about being kicked out of the soccer world. It turns out Danny was fired in disgrace because people blamed him for England's loss in the Euro Cup final against Germany. One day, Danny gets really drunk and drives his car way too fast. The police start chasing him. Thinking he's lost them, Danny stops at a bar to buy more alcohol. But when he enters, the police are already there, and he ends up fighting them. Because of his actions, Danny is arrested for reckless driving and hitting a cop. From a famous soccer star, Danny now finds himself in prison because of his own mistakes. Soon after, Danny is taken to prison, where the other inmates cheer as they see him arrive. They're angry with Danny because they blame him for England's loss in the final. Danny is then led to his cell, where he meets an old man named Doc, who works as the cleaner. Doc warns Danny to be careful because the prison is a harsh place. Doc then introduces Danny to the most powerful mafia boss in the prison, named Charlie. When Charlie sees Danny, he immediately claims that Danny owes him a debt. It turns out that Charlie lost a lot of money betting on the England versus Germany match, all because of Danny's mistake. Hearing this, Danny stays silent and doesn't say a word. The scene shifts to another prisoner being released from solitary confinement. This prisoner is known as Monk. It's revealed that Monk is a ruthless hitman who has killed 25 inmates while in prison, which is why he is often locked up in isolation. Danny, who is with Doc at the time, feels scared when he sees Monk come out of solitary. But Doc explains that Monk won't hurt anyone as long as he's not provoked. Later, Danny is taken by the guards to meet the warden. The warden asks Danny to form and train a soccer team. The warden plans to hold a prison tournament with money on the line. However, Danny refuses, as he's still traumatized by soccer, which nearly destroyed his life. One day, while Danny is having lunch, a few prisoners start bothering him. Danny fights back, but this gets him in trouble, and the guards throw him into solitary confinement. The next day, Danny is brought to meet the warden again. This time, the warden says that Danny's sentence will be extended by 3 years because of the fight the day before. Danny protests, saying that the others started it, but the warden refuses to change the decision unless Danny agrees to form and train a soccer team. Danny doesn't agree right away and asks for some time to think about it. While Danny is in solitary, he starts thinking. Suddenly, Doc speaks to him from outside, telling Danny that he should accept the offer, but with one condition: that the prison soccer team should play against the guards first. After hearing this advice, Danny decides to go along with Doc's suggestion. Soon after, Danny is brought to meet the warden again. This time, Danny agrees to form and train a soccer team. However, before the team plays against other prisons, Danny asks for a match between his team and the guards. Hearing that, the warden agrees to Danny's request, and Danny is released from solitary to start recruiting players for his soccer team. After that, Danny is shown around the prison by another inmate to see which prisoners have soccer talent. During this time, Danny finds a few people who could be good for his soccer team. Then he notices some of Charlie's men, the mafia boss, who are really good at soccer. However, Danny knows he can't just recruit them without asking Charlie first. Not long after, another inmate approaches Danny, claiming to be a huge fan. The inmate begs Danny to let him join the soccer team. Feeling sorry for the inmate, Danny agrees to let him join, even though he doesn't know how well the inmate can play soccer. At the same time, Danny accidentally sees some prisoners dealing drugs. It turns out they're allowed to do this because the warden knows about it and gets a cut of the profits each month, including from Charlie. Later that afternoon, one of the prisoners Danny recruited is practicing soccer in the prison hallway. Suddenly, a guard shows up and starts beating him. No other inmate dares to stop the guard except for Danny. Because of this, Danny is sent back to solitary confinement for 1 day. It turns out that ever since he challenged the guards to a soccer match with his new team, the guards have grown to hate him and everyone on his team. Now, the guards are planning to take down Danny so they can win the soccer game. If the guards lose, the warden will be furious, as he has placed a big bet on the guards' victory. The scene shifts back to Danny, still locked in solitary. To stay in shape, he practices juggling with a tennis ball he finds in the room. The next day, Danny is released from solitary, and his soccer team welcomes him back warmly. There, he quickly gets back to training with the team. Meanwhile, a prisoner named Billy is ordered by the guards to hurt Danny. Later, when Danny is taking a shower, Billy and his friends suddenly attack him. Luckily, he manages to escape the attack unharmed. The next day, Danny continues training with his team. It's clear that they've improved since their last practice. Soon, one of the players tells Danny that they still need 2 more people, which are a striker and a goalkeeper. Danny remembers one of Charlie's men named Bob, who is really skilled. Danny quickly goes to Charlie and asks if he can recruit Bob. Hearing that, Charlie agrees, but only if Danny can win a duel against his right-hand man. The fight isn't a regular one, though it's a bastard fight where both of them have one hand cuffed while sitting, and they're allowed to hit each other with their free hand until someone gets knocked out. Without hesitation, Danny accepts Charlie's challenge. In the end, Danny wins the fight, and Charlie allows him to recruit Bob. The next day, Danny, with Doc's help, continues training the soccer team. After practice, Danny realizes they still need 1 more player, and it was a goalkeeper. Bob suggests recruiting Monk, the most brutal prisoner, as the goalkeeper. At first, Danny refuses because Monk is hard to control, but Bob convinces him, saying they need someone like Monk for their match against the guards. Danny agrees and goes to Monk's cell. At first, Monk refuses because he doesn't know how to play soccer. But when Danny mentions that they'll be playing against the guards, Monk quickly agrees since he hates all the guards in the prison. Now, Danny's soccer team is finally complete, with Danny playing as a striker alongside Bob, one of Charlie's men. The team continues to train as usual, but Monk starts beating up anyone who scores a goal against him. Meanwhile, the guards are also training hard, coached by a professional from outside the prison. After practice, Monk shows off his fighting skills and tells the team to use these moves on the guards during the match, but to make sure the referee doesn't see. The scene shifts to one of the guards who orders Billy to plant a bomb in Danny's cell. The guard wants Danny to die so that it will be easier for the guards to win the soccer match. On the other side, Danny is visited by a woman named Tracy, who is the warden's assistant. It turns out Tracy is a huge fan of Danny from when he used to play for the England national team. Unexpectedly, Tracy makes a move on Danny, and he agrees. Later, Danny gathers his team to discuss the upcoming soccer match against the guards, which is set for the next day. At the same time, Billy sneaks into Danny's cell and hides the homemade bomb in his locker. The plan is that when Danny opens the locker, the bomb will explode. About 30 minutes later, Danny is still talking with his team when he decides to go to his locker to get his soccer tactics book. Suddenly, Doc asks Danny to stay put and offers to get the book for him. When Doc opens Danny's locker, the guard's trap fails, and instead of Danny, it is Doc who dies in the explosion. Seeing their plan fail, the guards send Billy to solitary confinement for not completing his mission properly. The next day, Danny and the team gather to bury Doc, who had died the day before. Danny is certain that the guards are behind this, and he promises to get revenge during the soccer match, which will take place in just a few hours. Soon, the soccer match between Danny's team and the guards is about to begin. Shortly after, Danny and his team head to the locker room to change into their uniforms. All the prisoners cheer for Danny's team because they all hate the guards. In the locker room, Charlie gives Danny's team their soccer uniforms, calling them the Mean Machine. Charlie is counting on Danny to win this match because he's placed a big bet with the warden. Charlie also tells Danny to make up for his past failure when playing for the national team, even though the situation is completely different now. Not long after, both teams enter the field and the game begins. 20 minutes into the match, Danny's team is awarded a free kick. Danny takes the kick and purposely hits one of the guards with the ball to hurt him. Danny repeats this, intentionally targeting the guard to get back at him. Meanwhile, the prisoners are amazed by Monk's skills as he fiercely defends the goal. Before the whistle blew to end the first half, Danny scored a goal, putting his team in the lead. After that, the guards' team started playing rough, which led to a fight that caused the game to be paused, even though there were still a few minutes left in the first half. During the break, Danny was suddenly called by the warden. At that moment, the warden told him that he must throw the game or his prison sentence would be extended to 20 years. Hearing that, Danny felt torn cause if he listened to the warden, his team, and Charlie would hate him. But if he didn't, he couldn't imagine spending 20 years in prison. When the second half began, Danny was distracted and started playing poorly. Luckily, even though Danny was struggling, Monk managed to block all of the enemy shots on goal. Then, one of Danny's teammates got a red card for punching a player from the guards team. Despite Danny's lack of focus, his team managed to score another goal, making the score 2-0. However, the guards team kept attacking and eventually broke through the defense, scoring 2 goals to tie the game at 2-2. This made the warden very happy. After that, Danny decided to get back in the game, no longer caring if he had to spend the rest of his life in prison. He kept pushing forward with attack after attack, but he still hadn't scored. As the game entered injury time, Danny made a perfect pass to Bob, who scored another goal. In the end, Danny's team won 3-2. While Danny and the team were celebrating their victory, there was a huge explosion. It turned out that Charlie had caused the explosion to help all the prisoners escape quickly. The film ends. The moral lesson from this film is if you're bad at soccer, to start a prison riot, it might help you win. And remember, sometimes kicking a ball can fix your life unless it blows up first.